95% of couples who claim they're trying to save their marriage are actually digging their own conjugal grave with every desperate attempt to fix their partner. What if I told you that the 7 principles that actually work to create an unshakable marriage have nothing to do with compromise, non-violent communication, or couples therapy? If you're watching this, you're probably exhausted. Exhausted from reading about love languages, from trying to be more understanding, from swallowing frustrations to keep the peace. You've tried being the perfect partner, but you feel like you're rowing alone in an ocean of misunderstandings and silent resentments. I understand that frustration because I've been there. And I discovered something revolutionary. It's not that you don't love each other enough. It's that you're using the wrong tools to build something that should be eternal. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal the 7 principles that actually make marriages work. Not based on modern sentimentalism, but on 2,000 years of Stoic wisdom tested by history's greatest minds. You'll understand why Marcus Aurelius remained married for decades amid the chaos of the Roman Empire, and how to apply that same philosophy to transform your relationship into an unshakable fortress, even when everything around seems to collapse. The first principle for a marriage that withstands time isn't knowing your partner. It's knowing yourself through knowing your partner. John Gottman calls this love maps, but the Stoics have a much more powerful concept: self-knowledge through the other. Epictetus taught that wisdom begins in distinguishing what is under our control from what is not. In marriage, this means something radical. You cannot control your partner's moods, decisions, or reactions, but you can completely control how much you truly know and understand their internal landscape. Let me tell you about Marcus and Claudia. Fictional names, real situation. After 8 years of marriage, they reached a point where Marcus knew that Claudia was always negative, and Claudia knew that Marcus was emotionally unavailable. When I introduced the Stoic concept of mental maps, something surprising happened. Marcus discovered that Claudia's negativity was actually a sign that she processed emotions through verbalization, something he interpreted as complaining, but which was for her a way to release tension and reach solutions. Claudia discovered that Marcus's emotional unavailability was actually how he demonstrated love, through practical actions and solutions, not through words. He showed love by washing the dishes, not by saying, "I love you" 3 times a day. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." In marriage, this means that your interpretation of your partner's behavior says more about you than about them. The Stoic mental map isn't just knowing your partner's favorite food or preferred movie. It's understanding the fundamental principles that govern their reactions, their deep fears, their value systems, and, crucially, how you project your own limitations in interpreting this information. This week, every time you feel irritated with your partner, ask this Stoic question: what does this irritation reveal about my uncommunicated expectation? Then ask, what do I still not understand about their point of view that could transform my irritation into compassion? The second principle destroys a dangerous myth, that you should admire your partner for what they do for you. This is transactional and fragile. Stoic admiration is based on character, not performance. Seneca loved Paulina, not because she made him happy, but because he recognized in her the cardinal virtues: wisdom in how she navigated family conflicts, justice in how she treated servants, courage to express unpopular opinions, and temperance in how she managed resources and emotions. Imagine that admiration is like feeding a fire. Most people throw twigs, small gestures, sweet words, romantic surprises. These twigs burn quickly and need constant replenishing. Stoic admiration is like putting oak logs on the fire, the fundamental virtues of character that burn slowly and consistently, providing warmth even on the coldest nights. I knew a couple, Robert and Anna, married for 15 years. Robert told me, "I can't admire her anymore. She's not the woman I married." When I asked what he originally admired, he listed, "She was fun, always surprised me, did special things." I applied the Stoic filter. "Robert, what virtues do you see in Anna today?" Initial resistance, then slowly, "She's incredibly resilient. When my mother got sick, Anna organized everything without complaining. I've never seen her speak badly about anyone behind their backs, and she has a practical wisdom for solving problems that I don't have." In 6 months, Robert went from considering divorce to deeply respecting his wife. Not because Anna changed, but because he learned to see with stoic eyes. Here's the key. Admiration based on behavior is hostage to circumstances. Admiration based on virtues grows stronger with time and adversity. When your partner is going through a difficult phase, instead of cataloging what they're not doing, ask, what virtue is being tested here, and how are they showing character through this challenge? The third principle challenges everything you've been taught about fondness. Modern psychology says fondness comes from shared positive experiences. Stoicism says true fondness comes from shared struggles and how you face them together. Marcus Aurelius didn't develop deep fondness for his wife because they had romantic dinners. He developed it because together they faced plagues, wars, political betrayals, and the death of children. Every crisis became an opportunity to see her character under pressure and to appreciate the strength they created together. I worked with David and Sarah, who came to me saying they had lost the spark. Indeed, when I asked about their happiest memories, they listed vacations, celebrations, easy times. When I asked about their proudest moments as a couple, something shifted. Sarah remembered how David supported her through her father's alcoholism without ever making her feel ashamed. David remembered how Sarah fought alongside him when he was wrongfully accused at work, never doubting his integrity. The Stoic principle here is profound. Fondness isn't destroyed by adversity, it's forged by it. Every difficulty you overcome together isn't something that tests your marriage, it's something that builds your marriage. But here's the crucial distinction. This only works if you face difficulties as allies, not as enemies. The moment you start blaming each other for problems instead of collaborating to solve them, adversity becomes destructive instead of constructive. Think of your marriage like a sword being forged. The heat and hammering don't weaken good metal, they strengthen it. But if the metal has impurities, or if the blacksmith doesn't know what he's doing, the same process that should create strength creates fractures. This week, instead of trying to create positive experiences to rebuild fondness, look back at the challenges you've overcome together and acknowledge the character both of you showed. Then, the next time a problem arises, consciously frame it as us against the problem instead of me against you. The fourth principle is perhaps the most counterintuitive. Let your partner influence you, but not by abandoning your principles. Modern advice says, compromise. Stoicism says, be moved by virtue, unmoved by vice. Cato the Younger was famously immovable on his principles, but incredibly flexible in his methods. In marriage, this translates to being completely open to changing your approach, your habits, your perspectives when your partner presents a better way, but being unmovable when asked to compromise your fundamental values. I remember Elena and Miguel, where Elena constantly felt that Miguel never listened to her suggestions. Miguel felt that Elena was always trying to change him. The breakthrough came when I introduced the Stoic concept of virtuous influence. Miguel learned to ask, is what Elena is suggesting aligned with virtue? Would it make me a better person, a better husband, a better contributor to our marriage? When the answer was yes, he embraced the change completely. When the answer was no, he stood firm but explained his reasoning based on principles. not preferences. Elena learned to frame her requests in terms of virtues and shared values rather than personal preferences. Instead of, "You never help with the kids," she said, "I think we could both grow in the virtue of justice by sharing parental responsibilities more equally. What do you think would be a fair division?" The magic happened when both realized that being influenced by your partner's virtue makes you stronger, not weaker. When Elena saw Miguel changing based on good reasoning, she respected him more, not less. When Miguel saw Elena's suggestions were motivated by making their family stronger, he welcomed her input instead of resisting it. Here's the Stoic test. If your partner's influence is pulling you toward wisdom, justice, courage, or temperance, embrace it fully. If it's pulling you away from these virtues, resist firmly but kindly. And when you want to influence your partner, always appeal to their highest nature, not their weaknesses or insecurities. The fifth principle revolutionizes how you handle problems. Solve them at the source, not at the symptoms. Stoics understood that most marital problems aren't actually marital problems. They're character problems expressing themselves through marriage. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." In marriage, this means that the end of surface-level problem-solving is the beginning of character-based transformation. Take the classic fight about money. Most couples argue about budgets, spending habits, financial priorities. The Stoic approach asks deeper questions. What virtue is lacking here? Is this about temperance, the ability to moderate desires? Is this about justice, fair distribution of financial decisions? Is this about wisdom, understanding long-term consequences? Is this about courage, the bravery to have difficult conversations about values? I counseled James and Lisa, who fought constantly about James's spending on his hobbies. Traditional therapy focused on budgeting and communication techniques. The Stoic approach revealed that James was using purchases to avoid anxiety about his career stagnation, and Lisa was using financial control to feel secure in a marriage where she felt emotionally disconnected. The real problem wasn't money. It was that James needed to develop the courage to address his career fears directly, and Lisa needed to develop the wisdom to communicate her emotional needs clearly. When they worked on these character issues, the money conflicts resolved naturally. This is the power of Stoic problem solving. Instead of managing symptoms forever, you eliminate root causes permanently. But it requires something most people avoid: looking at how your own character deficiencies contribute to relationship problems. The brutal truth is that every recurring argument in your marriage is revealing a character weakness in yourself, your partner, or both. The Stoic solution isn't to avoid these revelations, it's to welcome them as opportunities for growth. Here's your practical exercise. The next time you have a conflict, ask, what virtue, if developed more fully in me, would make this problem impossible? Then work on developing that virtue, regardless of what your partner does. The sixth principle transforms how you handle conflict. Create a culture where repair attempts work because they're based on truth, not on tactics. Most marriage advice teaches you techniques for de-escalating arguments. Stoicism teaches you how to transform conflict into connection. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about events. In marital conflict, this means that the fight isn't actually about the dishes, the in-laws, or the money. It's about the meanings you're assigning to these situations. Marcus Aurelius developed a practice he called morning reflection, where he prepared himself mentally for the challenges of the day, including how he would respond to difficult people. Imagine adapting this for marriage. Before engaging in any serious conversation with your partner, taking a moment to set your intention toward virtue rather than victory. I taught this to Carlos and Maria, who had developed a pattern of explosive fights followed by days of cold silence. Their repair attempts, apologies, gifts, promises never worked because they were trying to fix the damage instead of preventing the damage. The Stoic approach focuses on repair before conflict even begins. Every morning, Carlos began asking, "How can I respond today from my best self rather than my triggered self?" Maria learned to pause before responding to anything that activated her anger and ask, "What would the wisest version of me do here?" But here's the crucial element that most advice misses. Repair attempts only work in a culture of truth-telling. If you're lying to keep the peace, if you're hiding resentments to avoid conflict, if you're pretending to agree when you fundamentally disagree, then no repair technique will save you. The Stoic marriage culture is built on what Marcus Aurelius called the discipline of desire, the practice of wanting what is true more than what is comfortable. This means having the courage to say hard things kindly and the wisdom to receive hard truths gracefully. When Carlos learned to say, "Maria, I feel disrespected when decisions are made without my input, and I want to understand your perspective," instead of sulking or exploding, everything changed. When Maria learned to say, "Carlos, I make decisions quickly when I feel like my concerns aren't being heard, and I need to know that my voice matters," instead of defending or attacking, their conflicts became conversations. The repair happens not after the damage, but in the moment of potential damage, when you choose virtue over ego. The seventh and final principle is the foundation that makes all others possible. Nurture meaning and shared purpose that transcends your individual happiness. The Stoics understood that marriages built on mutual pleasure are vulnerable to anything that threatens that pleasure. Marriages built on shared virtue and purpose are anti-fragile. They grow stronger under stress. This is perhaps the most radical departure from modern marriage advice. Contemporary culture tells you that your partner should make you happy. Stoicism says that you and your partner should make each other excellent, and happiness will emerge as a byproduct of that excellence. Marcus Aurelius and Faustina weren't trying to have a happy marriage. They were trying to create a partnership worthy of their responsibilities to the Roman Empire, their children, and their own character development. Their happiness came from the meaning they created together, not from the pleasure they gave each other. I remember working with Thomas and Jennifer, who were considering divorce after 20 years. When I asked what originally brought them together, they couldn't remember. When I asked what they were building together beyond their own comfort, they had no answer. We spent months identifying their shared values and vision. Thomas realized he deeply valued education and character development. Jennifer realized she was passionate about creating stability and beauty in their community. Together, they discovered they could build something meaningful, a family culture that produced children with strong character and a home that served as a refuge and inspiration for their community. Once they had a shared purpose larger than their individual happiness, their daily conflicts seemed smaller. When you're building something eternal together, temporary irritations don't threaten the foundation. But here's the key insight. This shared meaning must be chosen and renewed regularly. It's not enough to have discussed it once. It must become the lens through which you make decisions, resolve conflicts, and evaluate your progress as a couple. The most successful marriages I've observed aren't the ones where people never fight or where passion never fades. They're the ones where two people wake up every day knowing they're collaborating on something important, something that will outlast them, something that makes them better individually and powerful together. Here's the pattern that destroys marriages. When your individual happiness becomes your highest priority, your partner becomes either a means to that end or an obstacle to it. Here's the pattern that strengthens marriages. When your shared character development and purposeful collaboration become your highest priority, temporary unhappiness becomes a tool for growth rather than a reason for escape. Now here's the insight that changes everything, the pattern-breaking truth that most relationship experts miss. The biggest threat to your marriage isn't conflict, loss of passion, or even infidelity. It's the modern belief that your emotions about your partner are facts about your partner. When you feel annoyed, you think your partner is annoying. When you feel unloved, you think your partner doesn't love you. When you feel disappointed, you think your partner is disappointing. This is exactly backwards. The Stoics understood that your emotions are information about your internal state, not accurate assessments of external reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." In marriage, this means that your feeling unloved doesn't mean your partner doesn't love you. It means you're receiving love in a way you don't recognize or appreciate. Your feeling unappreciated doesn't mean your partner doesn't value you. It means your sense of worth is dependent on external validation rather than internal virtue. This is why couples can go to therapy for years, learning better communication techniques and conflict resolution skills, but still feel fundamentally unsatisfied. They're trying to change their partner's behavior to manage their own emotions, instead of developing the internal strength to love, regardless of circumstances. The truly revolutionary marriages aren't the ones where people never feel negative emotions about each other. They're the ones where people have developed the wisdom to distinguish between their feelings and reality, and the strength to choose virtue even when they don't feel like it. If you're exhausted from trying to fix your relationship by fixing your partner and you're ready to finally build a marriage grounded in virtue rather than emotion, where your peace doesn't depend on your partner's behavior, then subscribe to this channel for more Stoic insights into marriage and comment, "My marriage is my Stoic training ground," below. Share this video with someone who needs to stop waiting for their partner to change and start transforming themselves. Because the truth is, you don't need your partner to be different to have an extraordinary marriage. You need to be strong enough to love them as they are while inspiring them to become their best self.